But first, boffins at Melbourne's Swinburne University have taken it upon themselves to prove the old saying, some ideas are so stupid, only an academic could have come up with them. Swinburne has announced it will start issuing certificates to people not for graduating, but for dropping out. They say they want to remove the stigma suffered by university dropouts. And so from now on, if you drop out, you'll get an award. Non-graduates will receive the, and I quote, Undergraduate Certificate of Higher Education Studies, a title so long it almost distracts from what the fact is that you didn't actually finish anything. You've got to wonder who's the Vice-Chancellor at Swinburne these days. Is it Oprah Winfrey? It's like, you get an award, you get an award, you get an award. Honestly, you now get a degree for failing to complete a degree. Caleb, I remember when we used to call Australia the clever country. I think those days are far, far gone based on stuff like this.
But I just don't see how it's going to work in any way, shape or form, right? So we say, because part of their argument is that it means you'll be able to come back and pick your degree up later, so you don't have to go through the whole entrance process again if you decide you want to do it again. Okay, but I mean, surely you could do that without coming up with some, wanky name like Undergraduate Certificate of Higher Education Studies, which means nothing. I mean, what does Undergraduate Certificate of Higher Education Studies? What does that mean?
Could you imagine putting that on your resume when you go for a job?
Well,
and they ask what it means. And
exactly.
It means I didn't finish the degree.
That's going to be the problem, because if you put it on your CV, the potential boss is going to ask that, because he's going to go, What is that? And then you'll say, oh, well, I didn't finish, and so they gave me a certificate, just like, the kiddies at school these days get the participation award. I mean, that's basically what it is, an extension of, right? Everyone deserves recognition, no matter how well or how little they've actually done.
Well, it's funny you mention that and putting it on your resume, because this was actually one of the recommendations in the review into the University Accord, which was to incorporate a diploma qualification into all undergraduate degrees. So if people dropped out after completing 1 year of their 3-year degree, you would automatically get a diploma, which is just ridiculous. And if you've been in uni and you've done first year uni, you learn absolutely nothing. A diploma for 1 year of university study is ridiculous. And I think really what this is all about is universities trying to justify themselves and trying to get around the fact that they have very high dropout rates at Swinburne University in particular. After almost 10 years, 50% of people still haven't graduated. And that is happening across the board, because people are going to uni, they're not getting value for money, they're going into degrees that they probably should have never picked, and they're leaving. They leave with all the debt and no qualifications. The answer is not to go, hey, that's okay, because we can give you a diploma in nothing. The answer is to go, let's take a step back and ask, why are so many young people being forced into degrees that are useless?
Well, I agree with you that this is about marketing, right? So they're encouraging people maybe a decade later to come back and finish the degree. But they also did talk about removing the stigma of being a uni dropout. I think being a uni dropout for some people could be a badge of honour, that they realise, you know what, this ain't going to get me a great job. I'd be better off with real-world experience rather than theoretical training.
In Silicon Valley, I mean, being a university dropout is a sure way to become a billion-dollar startup founder.
It's almost a prerequisite.
Yeah,
and you've got to be a weird nerd too. But it's something like a quarter of students, university students, drop out, don't complete their degrees in this country. So that, to me, means there's 25% of people going into uni who just shouldn't have been there in the first place. But they're shoehorned into uni because they're told at school these days that that is basically the only option. Or if it's not the only option, it's certainly the right option. You turn your nose up at the idea of doing a trade or going to TAFE or whatever. It's sort of an expectation that as a continuation of your schooling, you must go off to universities. And clearly, we are pushing through kids who don't want to be there and shouldn't be there and should instead be out either working or learning a trade, something practical that's good for society.
It's almost government policy now. I mean, Jason Clare, didn't he say fairly recently they wanted 55% of Australians by 2050 to have a university degree.
Well, it is government policy because universities work on a demand-driven system. So basically, the policy is in Australia, anyone who wants to go to university, if there's a uni out there willing to give them a place, then they get the funding from the government. But this is sheer greed from our universities. Just this week, UNSW announced they're opening a campus in Bangalore, India. They're the 7th Australian university to open or be approved to open Indian campuses. It's not even good enough for them just to get heaps of Australians who don't want their degrees. They're having to go to India to flog these things now.
Oh, fantastic. You know, we can thank Julia Gillard for a lot of this. She was the one as Prime Minister who uncapped university enrolments. And to some degree, you could even go back to Gough Whitlam, of course, when he instituted free university. But you know what? Everyone says Gough Whitlam created free uni in this country. Before that, under Menzies, we had Commonwealth scholarships, which was the same thing, except it was given to people who actually deserved to be at uni.